Chamberlain, the man of the hour. Britain has always had the uncanny power, when crisis and danger have threatened our lives, of being able to produce the man of the moment. The year 1938 is no exception. Over Europe, the shadow of war had grown ominously dark. Once again, it seemed that the nations were moving towards destruction. Through the land sounded the tramp of armed men, when suddenly came the sensational announcement that Britain's Prime Minister intended to journey to a personal meeting with Herr Hitler. The world knows the rest. But what type of man is this quiet, cool, yet human figure? In 1869, Neville Chamberlain was born in Birmingham, the great city which has produced many notable men in the past, including his famous father, Mr. Joseph Chamberlain. This is one of the few actual films existing of the great man, taken just before he died. While Joseph Chamberlain's elder son Austen was a rising politician, his half-brother Neville was intended for commerce. In the early 90s, young Neville goes to the Bahamas to look after his father's plantation. Among such scenes in this distant part of the empire, he spends 7 years. But it turns out to be an unprofitable task, so he returns to Birmingham, to the civic life of that great city. The war brings his first participation in politics. Mr. Lloyd George makes him Director General of National Service. A number of government positions lead at last to his first big chance as Minister of Health. In 27 at Acton, he opens Gunnersbury Park. Neville Chamberlain has always been a man of the country, with a passion for gardens, flowers, the wide open spaces, and the overwhelming desire that all men and women should be able to enjoy the beauty of those things which meant so much to him and to the health of the nation. In the same year at Droitwich, he opens a new bath extension so that the famous spa can treat even more rheumatic cases. At St. Paul's Cray, he inaugurates 4 cottage bungalows, neat homes for humble citizens, the plain men and women in whom he has always taken a deep personal interest. In 1928, appropriately, London watches him judging some of 13,000 entries in a champion garden competition. 1931, the year of coalition, the critical time all over the world when nations' finances were falling like leaves in autumn. Mr. Philip Snowden retires, Mr. Chamberlain becomes Chancellor. From his taking office, there begin a series of changes which eventually are to bring Britain's finances back to parity. In 1932 comes the gigantic £2,000 million war loan conversion, a colossal task involving an enormous organization, yet carried through with overwhelming success. At that time, Mr. Chamberlain explains,
now about this great scheme, the largest scheme of its kind that has ever been undertaken. I'm sure already one can tell from the way in which it has been received, the country realizes its immense importance, much contribute to the return of prosperity, and how necessary it is to carry it through with courage and with determination.
Budgets are never popular. In 1934 in London, in the first budget speech on the street, Chamberlain says,
the British Empire, they nearly all have deficits in their budget instead of surpluses. And pretty big deficits too. Compare all that with this country, where we've said goodbye to increased taxation and further cuts, and on the contrary are able to begin the work of relief from burdens. And I think you will agree that we have reason to be well satisfied with the results of our past sacrifices.
1936, the conference of the Locarno powers in London to discuss the situation caused by Germany's troop movements. From James's Palace comes the meeting of statesmen, including Mr. Chamberlain. In the same year, as Chancellor, speaks these solemn words, 1936.
In an armed world, we couldn't be the only great country this armed. We simply had to build our defense forces again, and we had to pay for it. It involved the expenditure of some hundreds of millions of pounds. But it will all be spent in the country, And that means employment, wages for a long time to come.
He still keeps up his interest in the civic life of Birmingham. In 1937, he opened his great new telephone exchange.
The Postmaster General has been good enough to express his gratitude to me today in order to this wonderful new building he has put up for our benefit. I wish to thank you for giving me this opportunity of associating myself with this very interesting occasion.
The same year sees far-reaching changes in the cabinet. Mr. Baldwin leaves number 10 Downing Street for the last time as Prime Minister to hand in his resignation to the King at Buckingham Palace and to receive an earldom and a Garter honour. And a strange coincidence that on his way back he should pass Mr. Chamberlain driving to the palace to kiss hands on his appointment as the new Prime Minister. Early in 1938, at a meeting of all political parties in historic Westminster Hall, to support the great Empire exhibition which was soon to be opened by the King, Mr. Chamberlain uses these encouraging words.
It gives me great pleasure to speak this afternoon to the peoples of the Empire and to commend to them the exhibition soon to be opened by His Majesty the King, of which I have the honour to be President. We are pledged to work for peace and progress in the world, and it is my hope that the exhibition will make its contribution to that end.
His words were prophetic, for his next achievement is the completion of the Anglo-Italian Pact, being signed in Rome by the British Ambassador Lord Perth and the Italian Foreign Minister Count Ciano. So far, we have seen but little of Mrs. Chamberlain, but 1938 brings her more prominently into the picture, opening the new airport at Belfast. The next day, she launches HMS Belfast, the first warship named after the great Northern Ireland city. But what of the inner thoughts of this man of many activities? Behind the mask of the cool, efficient statesman is a deeply sincere human being, revealed in a moving speech early this year, spoken from the heart.
People must be strong and healthy. If they should fall victim to accident or disease, they must have the best that is available of medical science. They must command an income sufficient to maintain themselves and their families, at least in a minimum state of comfort. They should have leisure, refreshment and recreation. They should be able to cultivate a taste for beautiful things, whether in nature or in art, and to open their minds to the wisdom that is to be found in books. They should be free from fear of violence or injustice. And lastly, they should be able to express their thoughts and to satisfy their moral and spiritual needs without hindrance and without persecution. Those are the conditions that we should like to see in this country of ours.
Here then is the real Chamberlain, the man acclaimed today as the first statesman of the empire, the world's great advocate for peace and justice amongst nations. Cheered by the people, honored by our gracious King and Queen, we join in praying for success for his efforts, health and happiness for him and the lady who shares his joys and sorrows. Britain will never forget the hour and the man who fought so hard for the peace of the world and won.